Phocas or Phokas, feminine form Phokaina, was the name of a Byzantine aristocratic clan from Cappadocia, which in the 9th and 10th centuries provided a series of high-ranking generals and an emperor, Nikephoros II Phokas. Its members and their clients monopolized the high command positions of the Byzantine army for much of the 10th century and led the successful Byzantine offensive against the Arabs in the East. As one of the leading families of the Anatolian military aristocracy, the Phokades were also involved in a series of rebellions that laid claim to power and challenged the emperors at Constantinople. The power was eventually broken by Basil II, and the family declined in importance after the 11th century. History, origin and early members. According to Nikephoros II, the family descended from the ancient Roman gens Fabia, while Ali ibn al-Attir ascribed them an Arab origin from Tarsus. Whatever their origins, the Phokades appear to have settled in Cappadocia, where their estates were concentrated and which is clearly attested as the power base and the center of their activities. Various authors have speculated on an Armenian or Georgian origin, partly to account for the frequent presence of the name Bardus among the family members, but none of these hypotheses can be conclusively proven. The first attested member of the family was a soldier, probably of humble origin, who was appointed to Ameshes in 872. His son, Nikephoros Phokas the Elder, became a distinguished general, scoring several victories against the Arabs, especially in southern Italy, and reaching the position of domestic of the schools. His son, Leo Phokas the Elder, was also domestic of the schools, but was defeated by the Bulgarian Tsar Simeon, and later unsuccessfully opposed the rise of Romanos Lekarpenes to the throne in 919, being captured and blinded. His brother, Basil Phokas the Elder, already active as a general, fell in disgrace for a time, but by the time of Lekarpeos's fall in 944, he was a patriarchos and a high-ranking general. Apex of power and fall. After the fall of the Lekarpenoi clan, Constantine VII appointed Bardus as domestic of the schools, while his sons Nikephoros, Leo, and Constantine were placed as strategoi of the themes of Anatolian, Cappadocia, and Seleucia respectively. These appointments heralded a period of over 20 years when the Phokades and their clients monopolized the Byzantine army's leadership. During this period, the Phokas clan was closely allied with the Malinoi, a rich and powerful family from Charchanon, through the marriage of Bardus to a Malinos lady. Other families that were closely aligned with and often related to them through marriage were the Adraelstoi, Skleroi, Korkoi, Parsakoutanoi, Balantai, and Botaneatai. Bardus himself, already in his mid-60s when named commander-in-chief, proved a mediocre general, suffering a string of defeats at the hands of the Hamdanid emir Saif al-Dawla. One of them, in 953, even left his son Constantine captive in the Hamdanids' hands. Finally, in 955, Bardus was replaced by his son Nikephoros, with the aid of Leo, who had already established himself through victories of his own, and his nephew John Zamisks. Nikephoros achieved a series of successes, recovering Crete and Cyprus and repeatedly defeating Saif al-Dawla's forces. With the sudden death of Romanos II in 963, the popular and powerful Nikephoros seized the throne, becoming senior emperor and guardian over the young sons of Romanos, Basil II and Constantine VIII. His father Bardus was named Caesar, and his brother Leo became Kouropalates and Logothides II Dromou. As emperor, Nikephoros continued his campaigns in the east, conquering Cilicia and northwestern Syria. Nikephoros' regime, however, quickly became became unpopular, both due to his focus on military affairs to the detriment of the economy and for his religious policies. In December 969, he was murdered by a group of disaffected generals led by his nephew and one-time protege John Zamisks, with the connivance of Empress Theophano. The Phokades were dismissed from the posts and titles and exiled by the new regime. Basil Phocas the younger son of the co-Europalates Leo and former Duke of Chaldea, escaped and rose up in revolt in 970, but was defeated, tonsured, and exiled to Chios, while in 971 Leo and his eldest son the Patriarchos Nikephoros were blinded and the property confiscated. One member of the family had a different fate. Leo's daughter Sophia Phokaina had married Constantine Skleros, the brother of Basil Skleros. Constantine was Zamiscus's brother-in-law from his first marriage and a close ally of the new emperor. Their daughter, Theophano, was married in 972 to the Holy Roman Emperor Otto II. In 978, Basil was recalled by Basil II to lead the imperial forces against the rebellion of Basil Skleros. Named Magistros and domestic of the East, he managed to defeat Skleros. Basil himself rebelled in 987, with the support of many of the major aristocratic families, in an uprising that lasted until his death in 989 at the Battle of Abydos. Skleros, who had returned from his Arab exile and had been captured by Basil Phocas, tried to assume the leadership of the revolt, allying himself with Basil's sons Leo and Nikephoros, but soon submitted to the emperor. Leo tried to hold out in Antioch but was surrendered to the emperor by the city's inhabitants. Later members of the family, after facing down the rebellions of the large aristocratic families, Basil II undertook a series of measures to curb the power, wealth, and influence. The Phokades in particular were kept away from military posts and suffered the confiscation of their extensive estates. Basil's edict of 996, directed against the often illegal accumulation of vast estates by the Anatolian magnates, specifically names the Phokades and the closely allied Malinois as targets of the emperor's legislation. The Phokades, however, retained a measure of influence in the native Cappadocia. There, in 1022, Basil Phocas's son Nikephoros, surnamed Barytratulus, in alliance with Nikephoros Xiphias, was proclaimed emperor. He was soon murdered by Xiphias and the Phocas supporters deserted the revolt, which quickly broke apart. The last mention of a direct descendant of the Phocas family comes in 1026, when the Patriarchos Bardas, the grandson of the Magistros Bardas, was accused of plotting against Emperor Constantine VIII and blinded. These events signaled the end of the direct line of the great 10th-century generals, which almost certainly died out by the mid-11th century. Nevertheless, the prestige attached to the family name remained considerable for a time after their end. The historian Michael Ataliates praised Nikephoros III Botanites for being related to the Phokades, whose glory stretches over all the land and the sea. The Phocas name is rarely mentioned thereafter, until it experienced a revival during the 13th century in the Empire of Nicaea. Theodotos Phocas, the uncle of Theodore I Lascaris, became Megasdu. A certain Michael Phocas was Stratopedarchus in 1234, and another family member was Metropolitan Bishop of Philadelphia. Family tree, 9th–11th centuries.